Okay, well, welcome everybody. I'll just grab your attention and talk you through the order of play tonight. Obviously, you know why you're here. It's a very, very special evening. We've got Trevor Painter and Jenny Meadows with us tonight. It's a first for them to feature on a podcast, so we're very excited. Time to welcome now former international medalist, world medalist, and now one half of the coaching duo at M11, coaching our best athletes. Please welcome to the stage, Jenny Meadows. So, Jenny, where is your husband?
Well, that is what I'm always asking. Where is he? He's in the back somewhere, I think.
So come on in, Trev. Come out from wherever you're hiding. You've had a fantastic weekend. The man of the moment, Trevor Painter. Hey, look, great to have you both. And you're actually racking up the accolades yourself as well, Trev. Sports Personality Coach of the Year, World Athletics Coach of the Year as well. You've got more achievements than Keely so far this year.
No, that was 2024. Is this working?
Yeah.
2024. Yeah, we did really well. There was quite a lot of things coming through. UK sport, sports personality.
My medal cabinet is shoving my medals to the side now and putting all his own things in.
So look, let's rewind. We could talk about this weekend. We'll get onto it, but I think just let's start in chronological order. Let's begin about the coaching journey and where it started for you, perhaps where your relationship started as well. So, Trevor, how did you get into this crazy sport?
It's a long time ago. I can't quite remember, but I think it's always been in the genes and stuff. As a kid, I was always devising little competitions in the streets and stuff, and mini Olympic stuff. And we had a surveyor's pole on our farm, which I turned into a javelin. My dad went berserk once because me and my granddad built a 200-metre track out of bricks on the horses' field. And so he came home and he was like, what the hell is this? So it's always been in the genes. And then, I was in the same training group as Jen, and she was looking for a new coach and just said, I think you should coach me. You're too old to race now. I was 29. And she went on until she was 35. So, yeah. I was a sucker there.
Jenny, that's interesting. What made you trust Trev in that moment then?
Yeah, Trev is very, very humble. So he deflects any sort of, success with his humour. Trev's just a people person. And you just know he'll try his best and, just do everything he can to make sure you get everything that you need as an athlete. So I think that's the secret of Trevor, that he'll just work really, really hard and no ego. I wish he had a bit more of an ego at times. But yeah, I just knew. He's always fun to be around Trevor. So I think everyone always gravitates to Trev.
So from when you started, how long did it take to get that world medal?
So technically, I started coaching around 2000, and 2000 she got a 4x4 relay gold at the World Juniors, but she was a 400-metre runner when we started. And then about 4 years in, 2004, she said, I think it's time to move to eights.
Kelly Holmes.
Okay.
She did the double. I was like, I want to do that.
And so we officially moved to the 800 then, but it was 2009 before she got her first global medal, because my philosophy was to take our time with the conversion. So I spoke to as many. Obviously, I was a 400-metre runner, so I've not broke 2 minutes for 800, which a lot of the girls in the group love and take the mick out of me. So I went out and I reached out to lots of different coaches in Britain and in Europe, and I just said, what's your plan and how do you do? And everyone's telling me the same thing. Well, you've got to do 70 miles a week. And I'm thinking, she does 20 at the moment. If she does 70, she's just going to be broken. So I said, right, well, we'll just add a little bit every year, and therefore we can keep the speed and in the legs. And that's always been our philosophy: low mileage, high intensity, and you kept your speed, you improve your endurance, and then started to win medals, which wasn't easy back then in the nature of the sport, because there was a lot of interesting things going on. But we managed to get some things out of it.
Do you look at your career and think you could have had more, talking about that era?
Yeah, definitely. And I think, again, probably being quite humble, I never thought people are cheating or life's unfair. If I was getting a silver or a bronze, I just presumed people were better than me. But obviously history now shows that, I've had a lot of medal upgrades, or that I should have had certain medal upgrades. But I do look at this new generation of athletes and think, I wish I was competing now, where I do generally believe it's a lot more of a level playing field now. So that allows me to commit as a coach now, because it's something I really believe in.
No, that's good to hear. And Trevor, you talk about reaching out to other coaches, and one of the questions I was going to ask is, who influenced you from a coaching perspective? Because it sounds like no one.
I think it's important that you make your own journey. I read a lot of books. I think British Marathon Club are here, aren't they? Were we? BMC guys. They've produced a lot of magazines over the years with coaching content in, which is fabulous. So I kind of bought up so many previous copies and just churned through them all, and like it, don't like that, that's horrible, and just made your own journey. But there's lots of coaches out there. Percy Cerruti in Australia in the 60s. I read all his books, and that really is a bit weird, like me, a bit daft.
Can I just say, other than Harry Potter, Trevor never reads books normally, so that's unbelievable.
So he was an inspiration just because of his journey and the way he used to coach. He was always doing innovative things, like he'd get in the back of a pickup truck and drive alongside horses that were racing at Melbourne, and he'd be studying how the ground contacts are and things like that, and then he'd get his athletes to mimic it. And of course, he coached Herb Elliott to 800 metre gold in Rome in 60 I think. Yeah.
Wow. I mean, your group has grown now. It's gone from, I believe it was just Jenny in the early days. Who were you working with sort of after Jenny retired, in between? I know obviously you were working with Georgia a little bit in her sort of early development, sort of as she was graduating out the junior career as well. So what was that period like, where you've gone from coaching a world medalist to then not back to reality a little bit, but almost starting from the bottom again?
Yeah, well, so the group at the time when Jenny retired, we had Kirsten McCaslin in there, who was a 400 metre runner. She got a world medal in the relay in Beijing 2015, and a few others. Georgia Bell was one of them. And it was just weird going down to train. I remember saying to Jenny, it's just not the same. Like, it's like my right arm's missing. You're still invested and you still care about the athletes and you want the best for them. But ultimately, you're only as good as the athletes you're working with. And if the mentality isn't right, and if the behaviours aren't right, and their beliefs aren't right, then they're only going to go so far. Unfortunately, we lost Georgia to the Great American Dream, yeah, and they did a great job of ruining her. And then, thankfully, she's managed to piece that back together again.
Absolutely. Talent spotting, then. You talk about picking up on the right athlete. They've got to have the right mindset, beliefs, everything like that. You guys, now that group is developing and growing, have you... It's probably a hard question to answer. Have you felt you've turned anyone away before? What do you look for then when someone joins your group?
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? Because you want someone to fit the culture of your group. So a lot of people don't think you can be high performers and, have a really fun environment. But believe you me, we have so much fun. I always quote the same thing. Keely always says, I couldn't be coached by a normal coach. I absolutely do not know what that means. Yeah, but Trevor's not normal. I do see it as a compliment, and we always have challenges to keep things really fresh. Keely's on holiday in LA at the moment. We're on training camp at the end of next week. So, we've always thought if we want Keely to have a long career, for example, we can't make her be a robot. During my career, I've got a lot of regrets. I was very analytical, took it very, very seriously. It's just my personality. I look at that personality and think, I wish I could kind of, put things in boxes and leave it alone for a couple of weeks and not think about things. But we have, when you are quite successful, obviously people ask to join the group. But if you can tell that someone's going to be shall we say, high maintenance and maybe expect a lot. And then that's not going to be good for some of those other characters in your group that, you know, need an arm around your shoulder, and you don't want too many big personalities in the group. We definitely have to make hard judgment calls at times.
I think just to add to that, I think things have become easier over the years in terms of us recognising what skill sets people have got. In the early days, it was like, I need some lads for Jen to run with. And it's like a couple of lads from Wigan would join in, and they'd do all right. They might run 150, 151, but that was probably as far as going to go. But you'd need good club standard males to help the women. But then as Jen was doing well, rather than people from Wigan coming, you get people coming from Liverpool or from Manchester and from Preston. And it was spreading a little bit. And now we're in a position where there's people coming from all over the world. We've got an Australian, we've got 2 Americans, a Canadian, 2 French, 3 Irish, a Danish, 2 Italians, and yeah, I don't know what day it is and what language to speak at sometimes. So a lot of it's done with sign language at the moment. But yeah, we're now in a position though that rather than club standard boys that are joining the group, we're turning away sub 4-minute females for the 15 and things like that because, 1, the character's not right, and 2, there's not enough space in the group for everybody. We can't keep saying yes to everyone. But we've got a good eye now in terms of, right, that's not the right person. Because it's a tough environment to be in. You know, we're working very hard every day and we're pushing them to the wire. And if you're having a bad day, it stands out. You look awful, basically. And that's good for Keely as well. She's been in tears some sessions because she's coming back from an injury and there's like 203 girls beating her in a session. But it's like, just patience, it'll come and you'll grow back. And
that's a very difficult dynamic for the pair of you. And, you know, just on there, you've had so many new people join the group, which means new relationships. What advice would you give to coaches out there who are just starting out with a new athlete in their career?
So advice for me is to, like, I think young coaches, they just want to coach everyone and hope that one of them makes it. But it's very difficult. You've got to make sure you're dealing with the individual and not just your own ego. It's building the system around each individual. So what this guy needs, what Tim needs, and what everyone needs in the room is totally different. So you've got to, pack the people around them that help them because you've not got all the answers. I've learned a lot over the 25 years of coaching, but we still have experts that help us and that I reach out to and get second opinions and things like that to make sure that they all get what they need. They're all on a different page of the book, aren't they, in the group? It blows my mind every month when I have to write the programmes. It takes me about 10 days to go through it. But I'll start with Keely and then I'll go, right, okay, well, Georgia needs more here, she needs less there, she needs this and this. And then with the next person, right, okay, this. And it comes together by the end of the month, but there's a lot of stress the last week. Jen doesn't see much of me the last week of each month.
Hence the song, Where Is My Husband? I was just going to say one thing that we're huge believers on. If we do get a new athlete, and they're pretty successful, we really make sure that we spend time talking to them what has already made them successful. Because if they just move over to our training schedule straight away, that's disrespecting the work that they've done. So quite a lot of people are kind of like, no, just tell me what to do. But we kind of compromise for a certain 3 months or so. And then we kind of then know whether they've got a good idea of what works for them or not. So again, not having an ego, we're kind of like, let's work together, especially the athlete's a little bit older. They've got far more idea about their strengths, weaknesses, what works for them. They've got all that life skill. So yeah, again, we've not got egos. We'll work with them and say, let's do this as a partnership, and then we'll take over a little bit more as the months progress.
We've got a 144 German guy who's just joined in January, and he's doing a lot less training than Keely is. And that's just, Keely's been on this program for 6-7 years now, and we've developed things as we go along. But this guy, although he can run 144, he's fragile. He does very little volume. He's been very undertrained, And it's like, right, well, if we do everything what we do with Keely to him now, he'll be finished. In 3 months, he'll be just, stress responses, everything. So we've got to be careful and make sure that guy gets the appropriate training at the appropriate time to get him to where we know he needs to be and what he needs to do.
Wow, and how much do you get to know the athletes on a personal level as well? You talk about understanding them physically, physiological makeup, everything like that, but on a personal level, how important is that?
Yeah, really important. And, we probably spend 5 months plus maybe on training camps. So on training camps, you've got to get along. And this is where me and Trevor differ so much as well. Trevor's social battery never ends. It's ridiculous. Where if I've been to the track with people and I've spent 3 or 4 hours, I just need to sit in my room on my own. I do not want to go to lunch and have a conversation with everyone, thank you very much, because I'm going to see them in the gym later. But that is where you learn a lot of things about them, relationships, things that are going on in their lives, etc. And a lot of the time when we are on training camp in the gym later in the day, and they might be doing like core stability and things like that, sometimes we're there for 2 hours and I might pick up on one conversation that I've had with someone just really informally, and they've just told me in that setting about something that's going on in their life. And then again, between the two of us, and we've got another coach as well, Darren Borthwick, our third coach, between the three of us, we'll pretty much have a really good idea what's going on. And a relatively new thing that we started last year, so we've been doing this for about 18 months, we've got 25 athletes in the group, so that's quite a lot. We've actually split them into, there's Rachel now, who's our physiologist, who has been employed by Morton and Nike, which has been brilliant. She helps us. We've kind of divided the group into 4 different groups. So Trevor's like a point of contact for 6 of them. I'm a point of contact for 6 of them, Darren and Rachel. So you can then go and have lunch with them, have a coffee, see what's going on. You couldn't possibly know what's going on with 25 people yourself, but each of us are responsible for 6 of them. And then between all of us, we really, really do know what's going on with them in their lives, which is good.
That's a huge part of our philosophy as well, is that we treat the human being first before the athlete. You'll watch Keely walk into the track and you know exactly what you can say to her that day, depending on the face. And it's, I'm going to stay quiet for an hour. Let her come round. She's not a morning person and hates the drive to Wigan every Monday when we train in Wigan. But no, it's about knowing what page they're on. You've got kids going through GCSEs and A-levels and all sorts of things like that. There's lots of stress in their life. Someone's lost a grandma. Someone's dog's been run over. There's lots of morbid things going on in life. And if I'm then trying to bark at them and get them to do spectacular things in training, some days I've got to back off and let's just get through this session. And so it's always human first, then athlete.
No, absolutely. And managing youth success, especially in this day and age, you've got Lupton House winning the world champs. Obviously, when Keely won the Olympics, 19, 20?
Silver medal, yeah.
A silver medal, sorry, 19, 20. And all these crazy other times, Jakob as well, European medalist, young. How have you managed that youth success? And because Keely has just got better and better every year, and it's been from the outside, it's been quite mesmerising, actually.
Yeah, again, it is looking after that human because Keely struggled. She'll openly admit for a couple of years after Tokyo, it wasn't easy. She was still picking up medals, but it's a lot of daunting stuff. Here's a big contract from Nike, here's another contract from somewhere else, and then someone wants to talk to you. This interview, that interview. You're going on TV now. When am I training? There's a lot of things going on in your life, and you're 19 years old. So it's like sometimes just arm round and talk things through. Right, let's prioritise things. This week here, you've got to go to this thing in London. That's non-negotiable. So let's make sure training works around that. We'll change some days around. It's great having the Nike headquarters here in town. They've got a nice gym, so we'll always try and do something in London on a day that we've got S&C, so she can come down, do the S&C there, and then go do her appearance. But yeah, it's just managing all that noise around them, because once you get an Olympic medal, there's an awful lot of noise, and it can derail you. You look at Athing Mo now; she's, we'd love to be competing against her right now and pushing them, both of them, to the ultimate times. But she's struggled as much as Keely has, with injuries and with off the track stuff. So hopefully she's back soon.
Fingers crossed. But what about you guys? Because is there extra pressure on you guys as well? Like, it's not just Keely. You're now in the spotlight.
Yeah, I'm very analytical, and when I was an athlete, I did take it really seriously. Again, I look at Keely and she can definitely box things off, and she sees things as a challenge, which I wish I had that mindset. I'm just not that way. Trevor is very similar to Keely. We've actually got these Aura rings. I've been telling everyone about this. And on Sunday, a couple of hours, well, in fact, they were warming up, weren't they? Their races were on 31 minutes difference, weren't they? And I actually said to Trevor, I feel quite stressed, actually. Like, only 2 golds will do. They'll both be devastated if they don't win gold. So I just looked at my phone and I said, yep, I'm really stressed. I've spent 4 hours 15 stressed today. Look at yours. And Trevor was in a relaxed state. I was like, how are you going to have to teach me how to do this? I mean, I guess it's confidence in your product, and all the hard work that they've done. But, you just don't see it like that at all, I don't think, unless I'm wrong.
I just think over the years you've just learned to it's out of my control now. From when Jen was racing, people couldn't believe Charles Van Comedy was the head coach years back, and it was the Doha World Championships indoors, 2010 or 2010, and Jen's warming up for the final, and I'm just lied back. I was chatting with Fuzz, high jump coach, who was a good friend, and chatting with Tony Mitchell, chatting with all these guys, just having a laugh and a joke. And he comes over, he goes, "Trevor, what's going on? Why are you laughing and joking? Your athlete's about to run a final." I'm like, well, yeah, but if I'm sat here worried and scared, then she's going to pick up on that, and she's going to become that herself. Whereas if I'm chilled and relaxed, she's like, oh yeah, there's no threat here, I'm just going to go do my job. And it's just carried on from there, really.
How did you feel when you saw him laughing and having a joke?
Yeah, I think I was thinking what Charles was thinking. Trevor, take this serious. But no, it is. That's Trevor, and that's his personality, and that's what he brings to the role, which is great. And I've definitely had coaches who look nervous, marching up and down, etc. And I'm thinking, should I be worried about this? But no, I think when you've got great athletes to work with, you prepared them really well. Trev's relaxed. I still find it, I'm just about can say the word coach, because I didn't want to be a coach. It's probably the last thing I wanted to do when I retired. But I could just see, not the strain of the job, but obviously you've getting good athletes. It obviously requires more than just coaching. It obviously requires management and, talking to sponsors, agents, diaries away from what you're doing at training, and it wasn't a one-person job. So I got involved 3 years ago, probably, in full capacity.
Is there a part of your life where this relationship wouldn't work if you weren't working together? Because you talk about the responsibilities you had, what he was doing. Yeah. Would that have been sustainable if you lived separate lives? No,
definitely not. Anyone who can do this job without their partner be involved, I think it's really tough. We spend so much time away from our home and our family, and shout out to our parents. We've got a daughter who's 5, so they're always looking after our daughter, and school admin is crazy. I've only just realised that, how many things you've got to do for school. But that said, last year you had a hip operation, didn't you? And obviously Keely was injured, so she wasn't travelling very much. So we actually spent 16 weeks apart, because I was travelling with Georgia and Sarah and Erin to their races. I was doing training camps, and Trevor couldn't fly for a long time. So, yeah, I don't know what we would have done if both of us wouldn't have been involved with that.
Goodness. Here, look, I think the distance running, there's a lot of research out there on endurance running, especially 5,000 metres up. I think marathon seasons and park runs have added to that. But actually very few understand middle distance running. Obviously not as good as you guys either. And when I've watched, Keely and Georgia just develop over these last couple of years, and especially Keely, like her form has continued to get better, and obviously she's getting faster and faster, and that is quite unusual in the 800 to get so much faster, improve your 400 meter time that much. One, are you changing the game a little bit? But what don't we know about middle distance running that you guys do? Can you tell us?
No. We get it all from ChatGPT, so like we're just winging it really. But no, seriously, this last 12 months, this last 5 months, we've been able to do what we've always wanted to do with Keely, and that's why we're seeing this huge improvement. So there's been lots of talk. I mean, there's always trolls and idiots online saying, "Oh, they're clearly on taking this and that and whatever." And I'd love to just sit down with them or bring them to training and just come and watch what we do and come and learn, and then they'll have a different opinion because it is built on just pure hard work. And last year with the injuries that Keely had, we almost never got out of the first phase of training.
Can you imagine doing base training for a year? Horrid.
Yeah, so a lot of gym work, a lot of biking, a lot of aerobic stuff, and you just saw her body changing and getting bigger. So everyone's saying that it's because of drugs. It's not. It's because of the injury has caused this, because we weren't allowed to run fast. So we had to avoid any speed work and just stay down here on like tempos, steady state running, bit of biking, swimming, and then a lot of gym stuff. So then now that she's finally healed and everything's fine, we're just seeing these huge results coming through because the body's strong enough to cope with what we were asking it to do. And that's like, it's worked perfect for Keely getting injured. And like everyone's different. Like Georgia, she doesn't do anything near as much gym or speed work as Keely, but she's only half a second behind her in the 800 meter time. So there's many ways to skin a cat, as they say. But for Keely, the priority ever since Tokyo Olympics, we said straight away, well, we've got to improve your 400 to compete with Athing, because Athing could run 49 and Keely at the time could run about 52 high. And yeah, the next couple of years there was a few injuries and things, and we weren't able to do the speed work as much as we'd like to. But now we've had a full winter of doing everything we'd like to do. And we're seeing the results we're getting, so we're really happy. Hopefully that can continue for a long time.
And now could be competing with Femke. But Keely's time on the weekend is very, very impressive. But Femke wouldn't have gone much quicker, I think.
We get these conversations a lot, and it is quite frustrating, and it's frustrating for Femke as well. She doesn't like the comparisons. She knows that Keely's up here and she's learning the game. And she might never get to those levels, or she might do it really quickly. But I think people should just let Femke be Femke and grow at the speed she wants to grow. Her and Keely are really good friends. For 800s, there's many different ways to do it. There's the 4.8 girls, and boys. There's the 800 specifics. There's the 815s, and there's some 5K runners that can run a decent 15. Like Faith can run a decent 8. So you've got to make sure that each individual you're tailoring the training for that individual.
I was just going to say that. So Tokyo last year, the world champs, obviously there was only 100th between Georgia and Keely, but you had 3 significant training sessions in your holding camp, and they only did one together. So 2 were different because they are approaching it from different angles. So it is knowing your athlete and what to do and when. So, but again, that's all of your experience that you've learned throughout the years.
Credit to you two for coping with that dynamic. You've got 2 athletes going for gold. You talk about that preparation camp. I mean, how difficult was it, or was it a breeze, Trev?
It wasn't a breeze at all. Obviously, Jen stayed at home because our daughter was about to start school, so I was home alone with the girls, and they came in at different times. So myself and Georgia flew straight in from the Diamond League final, and the first 3 days in that environment is tough. So on day 4, Georgia's in tears in a session, and I'm like, oh, geez, okay, fix her. And Keely arrived like 3 days after us, and then on her day 4, Georgia's bouncing and back up again and loving life, and Keely's crying. I'm like, oh, fucking hell. So like you're like this all day long on this roller coaster of fix this one, that one's fine, okay, great, okay, move on. No, it is fun on these holding camps because you just see different things going on, and you see younger members of the team, GB, and you just see little mistakes they're making, and such a body's doing this, I'm going to do those drills because such a body does it and he's my idol, and then nobody's it right for you. Just do your plan, stay in your lane and do what's got you here. But like with the girls, they were locked in and looking forward to it, but we have to keep them. I
was going to say, though, that they're so different, aren't they? So Keely has a friend, Harley, who does her vlog. So Keely's just busy, doing a training, then doing a vlog. Georgia's calling me. We're having to watch videos of previous championships. They just couldn't be any more different, no. And it's interesting, I'd say. We
took 2 young boys out with us as well from the training group to be pacemakers for them. They were getting absolutely hammered every session by the girls because they're hanging on at the end of the summer time, and they're having a bit of a holiday and doing some sessions, and the girls are obviously peaking and they're breathing down the necks and beating them up. So it's they took one for the team, but they got a trip to Japan out of it, so I'm sure they'll be fine.
Absolutely. How do you know what to say and when? You talk about that emotional roller coaster, and something I wanted to ask you guys is honesty. Is it always the best policy in those moments as well?
Yeah, absolutely. I always use this same example several years ago with Keely when she was a young athlete. It was actually before Toran when she won the European indoors. So that would have been back in 2021. And she was in really, really good shape. She got a European junior record. And then I think it was her knee. She got an injury with a knee for a few weeks. And then she came back to training and she'd really missed those 3 weeks. She wasn't quite in the same shape, and she's having to say to me, what shape do you think I'm in now? And when someone asks you that question, you've got to be honest. And I gave her an honest answer and she didn't like it. But, then I say, but this session we're doing today, you'll see the benefit next week, and we've got 2 weeks until that champ. So if everything goes right in 2 weeks, I think we can be, back there. And it did happen, and she did get back there. But I think if you start saying to an athlete that they're in better shape than they are, that's not good. Yeah, even if it's not the truth that they want.
Yeah, and it's tough for athletes because they live in the now and they want to be up here all the time, and that isn't possible. There's days where you have to just accept you're here and just get on with it. And then there's other days where you can reap and go well because you're in a good place. And it's about keeping the mentality stable and honest all the time.
I was just going to say, you touched on it earlier. It is a world-class group. There's so many good athletes in the group, and we all joke, but we joke in the most supportive way. If you're having a bad day in our group, it's really highlighted. But I think it's so important because everybody sees that someone can have a bad day. I feel like we're absolutely nailing Keely here, but she won't mind. But we
in LA, so it's fine.
It's fine. She'll hear it at some point. But you look at Keely and everything she brings and all the medals that she's won. We have a hill that we do in South Africa, and they all dread it. We call it Hell Hill, and she can be at the back on that hill. It's a real humbling experience. And some of the other athletes, I'm not saying they like it, but they actually go, it's actually quite good to see her going through that pain and not being brilliant, because it happens to the best of us.
And that must be important for Keely as well, though, to experience that.
Oh, yeah, I definitely think so. And, again, she's benefiting from having all those world-class athletes to train with. Speed, she's the best girl in the group, but endurance, I don't know, number 7 best female in the group. Very humbled.
What's the difference between coaching males and females? Is there a difference? You take the same approach with men as you would women? No. No. So physiologically, there's approximately 15 seconds difference. So you got to account for that in terms of
over 800 meters.
Over an 800, yeah. So obviously the females need a bit more endurance than the males. The main thing is mentality. So majority of the lads, they'll say, "Oh, I can run through that brick wall," and then they'll get hurt and fail and then realise it's wrong. Whereas the girls will confidently say, I can't run through that brick wall, and you build them up and then boom, they go through it. So it's having the right conversations and saying the right things to the right characters. And, Keely and Georgia, they always have extensive conversations before races. Can I do this? Can I do that? Where am I at? And we've got a lot of data and stats from each session, and we know that, well, this means this. So I think you're going to be fine, and as long as you know what the opposition's like, we can study them and work out what their strengths and weaknesses are and just pick the right plan to be successful in the race.
See, I'm glad you said that because you're male, and then you said that males will think that. But I do think it is different, males and females, from our experience, but maybe it's the calibre that we've had slightly more successful women than men so far. Most of the women in our group, we can completely benchmark what we think they're going to do in a competition, and they'll run exactly that. Some of the boys sometimes begin the season, it's a complete stab in the dark. We're like, oh, yeah. I'm not sure. I have read research, but obviously there's going to be world-class males who might differ from me. But I think females do always really apply themselves in training, and I think, and I think maybe it's more of a planned out kind of, session. It's more calculated where, I think whenever we've done anything where it's like a benchmark session, the girls are always completely right. And the boys basically compete. They compete better than they train in our experience. Yeah.
Interesting. Look, on relationship dynamics, let's have a little bit of a pause on the serious stuff. Let's play a little game of Mr. and Mrs. Let's get to know Trevor and Jenny a bit more.
Can I move my chair further away? She's probably going to hit me.
We asked them a set of questions. You know how it works. We will. Where are my cards? Here they are. So the first one, we will pitch this to you, Jenny. What is Trevor's most annoying coaching habit?
Always being right.
It's how relaxed he is. You even mentioned it.
Yeah.
So, no points for you, Jen. Trev, what is Jenny's most repeated word or phrase?
It's not the word, it's the intonation and the pitch of it. So it's Trevor! and the faster she says it and the more high pitched, the more trouble I'm in.
You two know each other really well. It's guys. Apparently it's guys.
Yeah.
Guys.
Say that would be my second guess.
Jenny, what is Trevor's favourite snack? You must know this.
I don't know if this is true, but I remember once going to a cafe at Sports City where we train, and I said, can I have, I can't remember what chocolate bar it was, and the lady said, is it for Trevor? And I said, yeah. She said, he likes Twixes. I don't know how many Twixes you've had.
Trev, do you want to answer that one? Favourite snack?
Well, the thing is, the marketing behind this is phenomenal because they're only out for a couple of months of the year. So the rest of the year, you're desperate to have one.
Cream egg.
And then a couple of months after eating them, you're sick of them and you can't wait. But then you've forgotten. So, it's cream egg.
What does Jenny love most about M11, Trev?
Ooh. I know what I love. I mean, I'd say the family spirit and the togetherness of everyone. I mean, there's some amazing friendships that have been built within M11, different, unlikely characters. There's Oscar, who is a really young 3K 1500 runner, and he's got a real connection with Keely. It's like, how's that word? But they just hit it off, don't they? And there's lots of people like that, and lots
Trevor,
of friendships come.
Are you right or wrong?
Probably wrong, but I'm in the lead.
He talked his way into that, I think.
Yeah, Jenny said it's our baby. You guys built it together.
Yeah.
So, we'll give you that one. Look, if Trevor wasn't a coach, what would his job be?
Oh, God. What would it be?
We'll rush you.
One of the most annoying things about Trevor is he tries to help people, but too much. What would you do? I don't think you would have said this. I'm going to say a teacher.
Trev still leads. Trevor, do you care to answer?
Well, what's the best environment to help people? In the sunshine, on the beach at Baywatch. With
You're
one of
not
those
getting
red
that
light-
job.
Okay.
Nicely done. Here, look, what does Jenny think is her biggest strength as a coach?
I think for me it would be that she has walked that path before. She's done the races. She's felt what it feels like. Like I say, I've never broke 2 minutes for 800. So if someone's having a conversation about how to do that, well, Jen can have that. And, well, it's going to feel like this. This is where you need to do this, X, Y, and Z. And I have a good understanding of it, but I've never lived it. And I think that's her massive strength. 2-0.
Yeah.
2-0, yeah. There we go. You need to know your husband better. Yeah.
No one knows Trevor.
Yeah, look, let's go back a little bit to the podcast now, and I wanted to ask about tech, especially AI, the boom of AI. Not so much from a training standpoint, but the impact it might have on future generations, especially younger athletes starting out in the sport. They might not be getting that good coaching advice that they would traditionally, and they're taking to the internet, taking to the AI. Have you seen and felt that impact? What's your opinion on it?
I'd say don't waste your time. There's nothing better than the human relationship. And I even put in, how do you get a girl to run sub 154, 800? And
Go on, tell
How do you?
Well, the answer was utter bullshit. It was like, it was just, yeah, well, that won't work straight away. So, like, you know, I think it's for the young coaches out there, it's being honest with yourself. Do your research, but stick to your journey and do it your way. You know, there's no point trying to be me. There's no point trying to be other elite coaches like Lloyd Cowan and people like that who's sadly gone on. Is do it your way. There's knowledge out there of how physiology works. There's knowledge of how human relationships work. And if you're really good at those two aspects, then you won't have a problem.
Yeah, do you worry about the information out there? There is information out there, you're right, but there's also a lot of bad information out there, and it's all getting just a bit muddled.
Yeah, and, you know, we even have some of our athletes who's read stuff, and they'll come to us and they'll say, oh, you know, what do you think about, you know, this that I've read? And I think the really important thing is that we don't dismiss them, but it's almost like, okay, so where's that come from? And then we'll, you know, either talk them down from it, or we'll just try to, you know, say, okay, there's a little bit of something in that, you know, you can always learn from things, of course. And actually, you know, you were saying that about the 154, but as a joke last year, you did say, didn't you, to ChatGPT, what event should Georgia Bell do at the World Championships? We were like, does she do the 8? Does she do the 15? It did actually come up with, it's possible to do both, a little bit risky, which...
I disagreed with that. I thought she should do both, but...
Yeah. But yeah, there's always things that you can take from it, but I really like Trevor's answer about that human touch. I think that's so important. And I think a lot of people in our training squad, they literally come for the whole social experience, as well as obviously physically what they need to get out of it.
The problem we've got in society at the moment is a lot of the youngsters, they need it right now, if not yesterday. And that, you know, you can go on Amazon and you can order something before 11 and it's at your house that night. You know, it's a crazy world we live in, the speed of everything. But, you know, ChatGPT and other AI formats, they will take a shortcut for you and get you that knowledge. But it's applying the right knowledge to the right person. And like I said before, in middle distance running, there's many different ways to do it. And it's making sure you're doing the right way. Because if we coached Keely the way we coached Georgia, she'd be probably a 156 athlete. And likewise, Georgia, if we coached her the way we coached Keely, she'd be a 156, 157 girl. It's making sure they're getting what specifically they need.
I'm just going to pick up on what you said. You thought Georgia should have doubled last year. You're the coach. Why didn't she?
It's her career, and I was outvoted by Jen, George, and George's husband, and George. So, they were worried about Welteji, and then Welteji didn't turn up for one reason or another.
It was simple facts, Trevor.
Yep.
I'm going to have to fight the corner here. So Faith Kipyegon and Jess Hull, Georgia had never beaten them ever. And she'd only beaten Veltegi once by a few hundredths at the Olympics. So the stats were against her. Where in the 800, she'd won 2 Diamond Leagues. When we made the decision to do the 800, Keely had not done her return yet, had she? But we were literally kind of like, there is a gold medal available here, where against Faith Kipyegon, there's no gold medal available. So it was simple facts, Trevor.
There we go. Here, let's have a bit of back in my day. We got Jenny here, so it'd be good to talk about, obviously, shoes, fueling, Morton. Has that impacted the way you coach and the training you prescribe? Now you know that Keely might take bicarb before she trains, or shoes, she might recover quicker.
All of that, yeah. It just allows us to do more of what we like doing. Back in the day, before super shoes and aspects like that, you couldn't do as much volume on the track, and you would fatigue earlier. And the key is in being successful is doing as much training as you can within reason of a high quality. And to do that, you've got to recover, and the older you get, it takes you longer to recover. So you've got to bring in more aspects and of looking at nutrition, this, that, and the other. So yeah, but it was a lot harder back then. But now with the shoes, we'll do a flat out lactate session, and 2 days later, they're absolutely buzzing still. And Keely will actually, we've done data on, we do jump tests now with beginning of S&C sessions twice a week. And so we'll do tempos on a Monday, and then the next day Keely will jump well. And then Wednesday we'll do a lactic speed session. And then the Thursday her jumps are way up. And you'd think they would be like frazzled because of the neurological element, but no, she just responds well. And then other athletes are different. They'll suffer the day after a track, and they'll be buzzing after the tempo. So it's a great way of us learning exactly what each individual needs.
Wow, so do you put quite a lot of weight on that jump test?
No, it's just body weight, just to count.
No, I mean weighting important,
yeah.
Sorry.
Well, it's just another metric to see if they're fatigued, how much can we push on, things like that. So Morton have been really kind to get all the girls and boys Oura rings recently. So it's another way of monitoring what fatigue levels they are. So if we can keep them training, as we've seen with Keely, we've had 4 months of unbroken training. And in the indoor season, she was running times that she does outdoors in summer. So it's about keeping them being allowed to perform and let them do the rest, So like if all this data and knowledge comes back to us, it guides us to being, making the right decisions.
Yeah, I was going to say, like, it's 10 years, coming up to 10 years since I retired. The sport is just changed so much in that short time. And it almost didn't matter what shoes you wore back then. I'm saying back then, like it was a long time ago. But now, these conversations that they're all having with each other, before the tempo or the track session or the hill session about, what shoes they're wearing. And, they know more than us. It's an athlete's responsibility to know what they should be wearing on their feet. And I think a lot of brands are explaining to them, which is really good. And the same with the nutrition. I mean, that was probably the thing that I was lacking, the knowledge, but it's just all out there now. And, I believe yesterday when the guys came in, they were talking about a lot of faffing that happens in our training groups. They, and they're literally, just going getting another Morton gel because they're looking at the watch thinking, okay, so this session is not going to finish for 40 minutes. I need a little bit more fuel inside me. And no wonder they're all running these times, not just the athletes in our team, but worldwide on a consistent basis. Because they're fueling right, they're looking after the body right, and the game has completely changed. And if you don't have that knowledge about, nutrition, recovery, what shoes you're wearing, you're literally, it's a bit like Lance Armstrong, isn't it? It's not about the bike. It's literally like you're at a huge disadvantage if you're not aware of all of these things.
You talk then about the athletes having to keep up with all the, not trends, but the latest science. And Do you worry about keeping up yourselves as well? Because it's quite a lot for you to just be constantly following. You're focused on the training, and there's all this other stuff you then have to factor in.
Yeah, but you do a bit of research on it, and then you can either discard it or this is worth an investment, and let's look into it. Ultimately, you never stop learning as a coach. We're always, reading the latest article, and the latest wonder kid will come along. There'll be an article on him. Right, well, let's read that. All right, they do it that way. I like that. Okay, and I'll sometimes it's just a fad. It's a fad. Let's leave that alone. And it's about making good decisions and researching the hell out of life and putting into practice what you think works for you.
To cut through all that is a bit of an art, though. So credit to you. Training's evolved. I guess you're doing more volumes at higher intensities now. But what about racing itself? Have tactics changed? Have the people you're up against changed?
Yeah, I was just going to answer. You can see in the 800 meters, the thing that Keely was really good at until the past couple of years, and people have kind of caught her up, is kind of between 500 and 700 meters. She could run away from fields, and now you can see that other people are really strong in that element as well. And obviously in the 1500 meters, where especially at the World Championships and the Olympic Games now, where there's none, it's just 6 get through to that final. Those semi-finals can be really, really brutal, and then you have to recover and come back 2 days later. So I think athletes generally are just getting stronger. Training has definitely evolved. Keely and Georgia do some training sessions that I used to do, but your knowledge has evolved as a coach, and there's you're definitely doing different things to what I did. So it is keeping up with what's happening, and I think that is sport, isn't it? It's about doing it first, because everyone's going to do it eventually. It's just who gets to do it first.
Do you think it's deeper, the sport now? Do you think it's deeper than when you were competing?
Yeah, there's more nations having a go, and the beauty of athletics is anyone can do it. You don't need to be from Kenya or from Great Britain. You can get a pair of spikes, and most countries have got a track in them somewhere, and you can go knock out some sessions that you've watched on the internet somebody else doing. But it is a very easy sport to take part in, but then it's also a very hard sport to be the best at, because there's so many people having a go, and different ideas and different philosophies and things that work and don't work. But ultimately, it's a tough world.
It's extremely high turnover, isn't there? Every year. Come on in. You mentioned fun all the time. How do you keep it fun in training, in life? How do you keep moving?
Good question. I don't know. I'm always just talking, saying daft jokes and being silly, and thankfully there's a few nutters in the group that kind of back me up and help me out. And we always say we should have wrote a book about the characters we've come across in sport, because we've had some weird and wonderful people come in the group and stories. I could talk all night about some. And we had one kid who he was a really young lad, and he was training for 400, and he was a bit of a shy character, so he'd ring you up, and if I was to ring Tim, you're gonna say hello, and then I'm gonna start talking because I've rang you, haven't I? But he would ring me up, and I'd say hello, and then there'd be just pure silence, and I'm like, "Are you all right, mate?" And he'd be like, "Yeah, so I went for a run, and my big toe was hurting." I says, "Okay, so what did you do?" He says, Well, I kicked the curb because I thought it might make it better." I said, "Did it?" "No, it didn't." I said, "Okay, so let's just rest it for a few days and whatever." I just should have wrote a book, because there's so many stories like that of silly decisions and foolish stuff going on.
But I was going to say, I think that's sport. One of the things that I love is you would never always necessarily meet these people if you were in any other walk of life. I don't think, it's an unlikely bunch of people sometimes when you look, what brings people together. But I do like the silliness and the daftness of you, and going back to Keely's comment that she couldn't be coached by a normal coach. We just have silly challenges, and it's serious when we get on the track, but everyone in the group seemed to like to have that kind of social side of it as well, and training with people that you like is a big thing.
One of the things that started was we have a big ice box in Potch, and you've probably seen it on social media, and after a session it'll get dumped over the top of someone, a bit like in the NFL. They always do it on the winning coach, don't they? The Gatorade box. But so I tipped it on Keely after one session once, and then all of a sudden it just became a tradition. And there was one training camp, and George said, I'm not being funny, but I've not been iced this camp. And it's like they're actually requesting to be iced now. It's become that much of a folklore. So
brilliant. And when an athlete's at the top of their game, is when I saw Keely break that world record, and then obviously she's still got to go contest the world indoors. Is it difficult to manage that peak, or do you just nail the planning?
I mean, I'm going to say it's all down to the plan, isn't it? It's like was it Hannibal on the A-team? We loved it when a plan came together. But the world record, she could have gone even quicker. That was the bare minimum we wanted. From what we'd seen in training, we knew something big was about to come. But then, doing the national champs on the indoors, she got a bit of a cold, so she was on Lemsitz for a couple of days, and then we flew to France. And then he let Werro in, which we're not worried about Werro. She's a nice girl, but she runs very fast for the first 200. And that just capitulated the attempt then, because 25 high through first 200 was way too much. It cooks you full of lactic. And the last 200 was a bit slower than it could have been, even though she pulled away from everyone. So much so, warming up for the final the other night, she's like, I feel really good here. I might break my world record.
No, she didn't say that. She says, I think I can run a PB. And I was like, as in the world record? Yeah, but we talked her out of that. We were like, just go for 155. That'll be nice. But obviously, still second fastest ever. But
when they're in good shape, they're very confident, and warming up for Paris final as well. She's like, I want to put on a show here. I want to run 153 in front of that crowd. And we're like, let's just win the gold, take care of that, and don't worry about the time. Just no risks.
Yeah, I was going to say, it does sound crazy to say we were slightly disappointed with that time, but we ran that. Keely ran that race safe, if you will. We just wanted to get that world record because she was capable of that last year. And then she was definitely in way better shape last weekend because training had gone well. She'd done a 400 metres and the leg speed was there. But just the way the season worked out, we didn't get, if you were really going for a really, really fast time, you would have liked to have done a 400 metres, then gone for the world record. But obviously the indoor season is so short and compact, you've just got to go with the dates. But one of the things that Keely does really struggle with, when she has done something really good, like the race, her combat race in Cilicia last year, that world record in Lievan, she does find it quite hard to motivate herself after that. So she couldn't really get herself up for the heats last weekend. The semi, even worse. And I want to almost go, it's the world champs, like, come on. And actually the thing that really motivated her is Dina Asher-Smith sent her a text saying, oh, don't tell anyone, but I'm going to do the 4x4 relay with you. And then that got Keely back in the game. She was like, oh, it's going to be such a great night now. Yeah, I'll do the 800, then I'll do the relay. And I literally pulled Dina, and I said, thank you so much, because we were having to rev Keely up for this final. But you saying you'll do the 4x4 made it seem exciting for her.
That's back to that fun, enjoyment side of the sport. I feel if you're happy and you're having fun, you perform so much better. It's easy. Whereas if it's a chore and it's hard work and you're not enjoying it, then every task you do in life, whether it's ironing or well, you don't iron, do you?
Neither do you.
Or whatever you're doing, it's hard work, isn't it?
This might be a dumb question because obviously Keely's just run the world record, but when do you think she's been at her best ever shape? Was it this indoor season that's the best you've seen her move?
Yeah, pretty much. Last winter she was looking good, and we knew the world record was on, and then unfortunately got the injury. But But this winter, it is down to consistency of training and her belief, her physiology, every aspect of the sport has just crept up and up and up. And, we've been begging for years to put her in the 4x4, and they've never listened to her. Well, they've just said, oh, no, we she's just an 800 runner. We need to see something. I'm like, oh, God. The problem for Keely is she never gets an opportunity to show what she can do in a 4. So we're really glad that we managed to do the 400 in Scotland, and all of a sudden, we'll use her in the relay if that's okay. I'm like, okay. And then, now they've seen what she can do with a relay baton because, there's so many stories of 800-metre runners that have ran great.
Or 400-metre hurdlers as well.
Yeah. It's the team element, the coming together and doing it for the team. It brings another level of performance to you. And, we've been trying to... The plan was always to try and get her to be able to run 50 seconds because that would close the gap with A-Thing, which hasn't happened now because she's not here. But we've slowly picked away. And I feel she can run 50 flat for an individual this year and probably a 49 in a relay if that happens in Birmingham, if she's lucky enough to be in the team.
But that's the aim, to get her in more 4x4 teams, hey?
Yep.
Right, well, we'll finish with one more question. Will Keely break the world record this year? Yes or no?
Do we only get one word?
Ideally.
Yes.
It's hard for you to come out with one word answer. It normally takes a sentence. When it comes, it'll come. Indoors last year, I feel the injury came because all the hype was she's going for the world record, and we didn't want that. We just want to just come and have a go at it, and if it happens, it happens. It is a very tough time to get. The person that holds that record, there's lots of things written about her, and it's it was a different era of the sport, but we're catching up with that now. I've gone way over my one word. I haven't answered, haven't I?
Still don't know your answer.
I've got another question. So.
Yeah, but if the right conditions happen and the right track, the right stadium, the right fan base, if everything comes together on the day, then it might happen. And it'd be great if it does.
Oh, we'd love to see it. Does training differ then? Preparing for a world record, what's different than preparing for a championships or just a regular season?
But the beauty of it, going for it this year, it's easier because, from now on, the Olympics or the World Champs is going to be September, so that's where you want to peak. And so you delay, you run in with heavy legs in the beginning of the season and middle of the season, then you start to taper and you suddenly come out. And a true peak can only last probably 6-7 weeks if you're lucky, if you do the right work. So it is tough to find the right race that fits that time scale. Indoors, it's very tough because you only have a couple of cracks at it to get the time. So we're glad that it came off. But outdoors, we could probably have 2 realistic attempts at it. And if it comes off, it's great.
Yes or no?
Maybe. Tune in.
Brilliant. Well, look, it's been an absolute pleasure, by the way. So put our hands together. Exactly.